Hey there guys, in this video we're going to be going to Dullahan and using a physical team to try to show an alternative for those of you that don't have like the strong mages to go the ice route that I showed earlier. Now once again, this is not really the rank 1 team or anything. I'm sure the rank 1 guys are doing different teams in this, but this is just, a way to score decently. Based on my calculations, this party can go as high as 14 billion. Depending on variance, it'll probably be lower, or definitely be lower after variance, etc. But with this party, it's a little harder to gear because we're not using anyone to preemptively cover or preemptively buff dark resist. So everyone is using 300% dark resist in one of their forms, or in the case of A2, her only form, which really hurts A2's damage, but it's the world we live in with super limit burst. Okay, here is the ambush. Everyone will be immune thanks to 300 dark resist. A little bit hard to gear, but there it is. A little bit hard to gear, but if you can, it allows you to skip the tank slot. Okay, now we're going to start off because Esther, in the shift form, is going to use 1,000 Needles because we've got this Imperil on the party. So we're going to 1,000 Needles to Mirage, and then we're going to use Bushido Freedom on our own party. And because of the Mirage, we don't deal any damage, but we dispelled our party and got rid of the Imperil. Do that first before you do all your other setup. Now A2 can just use Finisher to break defense. We broke the boss's magic with the Obsidian Bracer. Wilk can do his shifted LB for modifier buff. Now my Cloud is only EX1 because of that he doesn't start with the full LB gauge, so we're wearing a bunch of LB fill gear, and we're going to go ahead and triple True Focus Thrust to fill him on turn 1. Now Sylvie is our provoker. If you've got the Reflect Ring, wear it, and you're just, you're golden, you don't got to worry about anything. We're not going to do that. We're going to mitigate the damage, which is still completely fine. So Sylvie is going to, in the base form, Magnus for 85 general, Vines for 75 magical, also 80 dark resist, and then Compassionate for status immunity, because the boss does do poison and disease. So the single target magic on Sylvie should do very minimal damage. 137 damage. Yeah, a non-issue. The Reflect Ring just lets you not even care about it, but you don't need it by any stretch of the imagination. Okay, next we're going to go ahead and use Sylvie to shift. Now we got to use Wilk's LB again because not the LB. We've got to use his unlock, which cost his LB gauge. Now I'm not going to fight RNG and Crystal Drop variants and try to refill him. We're going to just fill him with Sylvie. So Sylvie is going to I've got your back on Wilk. Then we're going to go ahead and defense and offense to fill LB gauge and buff the party. Esther is going to go to the base form, and we're going to True Stormbrand for the Big Thunder Imperil, Energizing Bunny for the AoE Reaper Killer, and Calm Before the Storm for her Magnus. Now 2B can just end the shift form, which is not geared for damage. Just triple cast a Bolting Strike. We're going to triple Finisher with A2. Wilk is going to Hurricane Fist, which does cost his LB gauge. And Cloud is going to shift. We're going to use Elemental Lightning. This is a 4-turn LB modifier buff, which is going to still be there in the kill turn. And then double, triple slash. And we're going to like pseudo chain these. Not really. Just going to deal a little bit of damage to get ready. Alright. An AoE physical attack this turn, which we Mirage because of the defense from Sylvie, no big deal, and she's mitigating the magical stuff. Okay, this turn, as the first action, we're going to use the LB of A2, which is going to give her a modifier buff and all that. Now, after we did that, we're going to use Sylvie, because we've got to refill A2. We're going to use Sylvie to Marion's Blessing Lightning, and then double Clever to refill 2B, not Sylvie. 2B first, then Sylvie. Now we need to deal some damage to the boss while setting up. We got to push him below 50% by the end of next turn. If you don't do it this turn, it's okay, but by the end of turn 4, he's got to be under 50. So we're going to go ahead and start dealing some damage. We're going to use Wilk to do his 90 break. We're going to use the SLB of A2, but we're not going to chain these. We don't want to chain because it would kill the boss. So we're just going to deal some damage here without actually killing. Now, unfortunately, that's fine. And now we're going to LB Esther to put up the field. And whoops, I somehow have this turned on. This happened every now and then. I'm not sure why these settings reset. It's very irritating. But I'm glad we noticed that. Okay, so there we go. So we pushed below 50. We're fine at this point. Oh, and Cloud, go to the base form and LB. Now this turn is going to be an AoE Dark attack, but we cured the Imperil. 2B, Sylvie, Cloud, and A2 are currently wearing enough Dark Resist. Wilk and Esther are in their DPS forms, but they have 20 Dark Resist equipped and 80% from Sylvie, so they're also still immune. Now we're going to get ready for killing next turn. So if the boss still isn't under 50, you can like chain Wilk and Esther a little bit during the setup. Like Wilk could triple his Magnus and then double bolting, but we're just going to Magnus. That's all he needs. If his LB isn't filled, you can triple the boltings to fill it the rest of the way. Esther can Magnus and double bolting. Cloud is going to go to the shift form. And now we're going to get him ready for bursting as well. We're going to do his 150 amp, his LB fill, and then nothing personal, which is also a one-turn modifier buff. Well, next turn modifier buff. A2 is going to do Yorha, just Yorha. That's going to modifier buff herself. Speaking of, if your A2 is not EX3 and her SLB isn't ready until turn 4, still do Yorha and just skip the SLB. The SLB is a smaller modifier buff as opposed to Yorha. Now, if you are EX3, then SLB on 3, Yorha on 4, full burst on turn 5. But if you skip the SLB, it's a very minor damage loss. It's very minor, so don't really sweat it. Sylvie is going to shift at LB for the modifier buff and stats. And 2B, because we're not using her 150 amp, she's going to Tyvis's Spirit this turn. And with her auto LB, she's going to refill the rest of the way, so we're good. And AoE physical this turn, we're still miraging from Sylvie, and we're good to go. Okay, so now we're going to go to the base form with 2B and shift base form LB. We're going to base form LB Esther. We're going to shifted LB our Wilk. We're going to shifted LB our Cloud. And A2 is going to, well, before we do this, let's go to the base form with Sylvie. Now, if you don't own this, it's okay. Notice how the whole party has a 120 Undead Killer buff. But if you do happen to own Ihana's STMR, you can give Reaper Rune to 2B for a slightly bigger Undead Killer. Now 2B has 450 Undead Killer. Don't give it to Cloud, because he has 480 Undead Killer from his special materia. I'll show you during the gearing phase. But okay, now A2 is going to do Hateful Blade. Unfortunately, there is another new bug with A2's frames. They somehow messed up the frame delay of her Hateful Blade. I don't know how this happened, but they messed it up. You can see Reddit for a post showing details about it. But yeah, if you are spark chaining A2 with LBs, we're using a spark chain like a macro or something, you'll miss 1 or 2 hits of A2's Hateful Blade because they messed up the frame. It's very, 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 like 2 millisecond of a offset, but you will miss a hit or two. Your chain will not be at 120. If you're chaining like manually or slowly, it'll generally sometimes work. But if you're spark chaining, you got to account for this. So what we're going to do, we're going to send Cloud because he's very, very slow. Then we're going to click 2B first because she's a tag chainer. Also, she puts up that 35 Katana Imperil. Then after 2B, like a split second later, we're going to click A2. Then we're going to proper chain Esther and Wilk together. That'll weave in all the hits of A2 in spite of the current bug, and she'll be fine. So we're going to do that, and we're looking for a decent roll. It can go as high as 14. We're never going to get that high in reality. I want to get above 11, though. So I'm going to pause the video and do it 1 or 3 times, and we'll see what kind of variance we can get, because variance is as low as 8.5, as high as 14. So I'd like a decent variance roll for the video. So see you in just a second. All right, guys, let's try our first attempt, and we're going to do it like I said with the timing. So this. And we're looking for 120 chain count. We did. Perfect. Now we're looking for a decent variance roll of like 11 billion or better. 12.1. Not bad. Works for me. Okay. First try, in fact. Didn't expect that, honestly. Didn't even need to pause the video. Okay, so let's see how the damage breakdown went. It's actually a new high for me, surprisingly enough. You know, variance is fun. So here is the breakdown. Let's see who did what. So by calculations, Esther goes as high as 1.98. She did 1.8. That's decently above average. Very nice, Esther. Wilk, by calculations, go as high as 2.0. He did 1.7, basically. That's very, very, very slightly under average. So Wilk underperformed on that run. Cloud goes as high as 3.47. Looks like he got near perfect variance. It's showing 3.5 because don't forget that the team did deal some damage on turns 1 through 4. So it's adding that turn 1 through 4 damage to his burst turn. So on the burst, I'm assuming Cloud did something like nearly perfect variance. So, and yeah, it's adding in that turns 1 through 4. So Cloud, absolutely great. 2B, her max is 4 billion. Because remember, we gave all the good buffs to 2B. So, yeah, so 2B is at 4 billion maximum. She did 3.5, which is above average, so that's fine. And then A2, her maximum, because A2 is wearing 300 Dark Resist, it really penalizes her damage. Her maximum is 2.5 in Dark Resist gear. She did 2. So, and overall, everyone on the team rolled high except for Wilk. And then I got a new high rank. Pretty nice. I'm not honestly really that worried about my rank. As long as I get top 1,000, I am fine with it. Because top 1,000 gets a double Galvanite. I don't want to drop below 1,000 because we lose a Galvanite, but as long as I'm top 1,000, I really don't care that much. Double Galvanite is all I care about. All the way at rank 1, you still only get 2 copies of Galvanite. And that's my big thing, is I want Galvanite. Not to mention, 1,000 or better still gets 2,000 dark matter. So yeah, 1,000 or better is fine for me. If I somehow am at risk of losing top 1,000 by the end of 2 weeks, I guess I'll come back and roll variance even more. You know, big sad face. But I think this is totally fine for top 1,000 by the end of the event. So here's the party. You know, we're not using Reflect Ring, etc. You know, if you have it, by all means use it. It makes it a little bit easier. And as far as optimizations go, you know, we could rely on RNG to fill up Wilk, and then we could save Sylvie's 300% LB buff Magnus for turn 5 and use that instead. It's a slightly bigger damage gain, but it would make the clear so much more RNG, and it's not worth it for me. So here's what we did. So everyone in the form they are starting in is 300 Dark Resist. So starting Esther in the shift form, do not give her her Trust Mastery or STMR. We do not want her to auto cover. That being said, we're dispelling. It wouldn't matter that much because we're dispelling on turn 1 anyway. Now that I think about it, it would dispel the auto cover, but there's no reason to, so just don't do it. 1,000 needles, so we can Bushido our own party. Other than that, Obsidian Bracer, because someone's got to wear Obsidian Bracer to break the boss's magic. And then 300 Dark Resist. In the base form, LB damage versus Reapers. Now, before I get yet another comment in the comments about Titus's Garb on Esther, I'm well aware it doesn't actually boost her damage as far as her LB mod. It doesn't work on her. The reason I always equip Titus's Garb on Esther is because it's my highest attack power clothing, not counting the Clash of Wills gear. You know, every video with Esther wearing Titus's Garb, I get a comment, it doesn't work on her. I know that. It's because it's a 140 attack power clothing. Other than that, LB damage versus Reapers, and there we go. There's a card, and she is maxed on everything. Wilk, starting in the base form, 300 Dark Resist. Now, Titus's Garb does work on him. It does work. He does want to be wearing Titus's Garb in the base form, starting in the base form. Other than that, just Dark Resist. That's all that matters. Shift form, LB damage versus Reapers. I went with the Fist build because the Fist is less variance, or a tighter variance. Now, the Axe can give you a higher potential. It also gives you a potential for lower rolls as well. And I don't like the Axe unless I'm fishing for the absolute extreme max possible. I prefer the more steady Fist. So anyway, there's the build. You know, LB damage versus Reaper. And once again, he is capped on everything. Cloud Strike starting in the base form. Now, because mine is EX1, we don't have an auto LB, so we're wearing Paws of Prosperity, Dragon's Brush, Call of the Wild, and we're using 1200 LB per turn. Also 300 Dark Resist, and most importantly of all, we're starting with Power to Challenge Fate. This will auto-cast a self-only 180 Reaper Killer, which is bigger than the buff we're using on anyone in the party, so it gives Cloud a real nice boost. It can only go in Final Fantasy VII units. That is from the Vision World. I hope you crafted it. Shift form, LB damage versus Reapers. Make sure you're using double Tifa's earrings. They do work on her. Make sure you're using the Buster Sword. It does work on the new Cloud. And there we go. There's the setup. And Sephiroth's card, because it gives 100... It gives Reaper Killer somewhere on there. Of course, the last one I collect. It gives Reaper Killer. Makes him easier to gear. If you're EX2, just give him the best card. If he's EX2 or 3, give him, a better card. 2B, in the shift form, is 300 Dark Resist, Tyvus' Spirit, and Bushido Freedom. Also, 12 LB per turn. Or actually, all you technically need is 10 per turn. That way, we guarantee fill her between turns 3 and 5, because we're not using her Magnus to refill herself. Tyvus' Spirit fills up 20, 10 LB per turn, fills up 10 plus 10 is 20 more, and then we're using double Clever on Sylvie for another 20. That's 60 total, fills her guaranteed, no RNG. Base form is LB damage versus Reapers. There we go, there's the setup, and then, maxed on everything. Now, unfortunately, A2, this is where the sadness comes in. She is an SLB unit. She cannot Brave Shift. She has to wear 300 Dark Resist in her primary form. This makes Baby Panda cry, but it's got to be done. So 300 Dark Resist, and here, it's not extremely crippling, but it's pretty bad. So we can't even max her double hand. We've got to use jankness like Bruce's Hat and Dark Lord Armor and Soul of Palladia, and then fill her materia slots with more Dark Resist. There it is. There's to set up her own card, but she is still capped on Killer at least. She doesn't use LB, so it's still pretty bad. I hate SLB units. And then Paladin Sylvie, starting in the, doesn't really matter what form we start in. 300 Dark Resist, passive provoke, evasion, also as much bulk as you can fit. So she's at basically 9,500 spirit, evading, provoking, Dark Resist. There we go. We are using auto buff Wisdom of Hess, auto buff Saintly Castle to cut down on the damage. All that being said, she took a grand total of 500 damage the whole fight. So you don't need this much bulk. You absolutely don't. And then a bulk vision card. I went so overboard on bulk. There it is. Shift form, pretty much the same thing. There it is. Now, we are using Magia Schism or whatever in the base form, because this gives her a way to give a very, very slightly higher Undead Killer to our 2B. If you don't have this, you lose 30% Undead Killer on 2B. Not the end of the world. Don't worry about it. But if you do have it, she's got a free turn on turn 5, so use it. Okay, turn chart will be in the comments. This goes as high as 14 billion based on my calculations. If Cloud was EX2 or EX3, this could go dramatically higher. EX2 is a huge damage boost for him on global. EX3 gives him his own card. Mine is not. So there it is. Okay. See you next time. Hope it helps. Later.